And so here's our first one. Um, we've got a very kind of a horizontal focus on this one and some repetition. I think this is kind of interesting, these three little signs here. And there's, like the two that are kind of together, and then this one over here by itself. It's kind of a fun play on the rule of thirds a little bit. It's a nice image, probably, you know, not necessarily the most interesting. When we're using a lot of horizontality, and this is very dominated by horizontal line, um, it it's there's got to be a little something extra in there to, kind of break up the monotony. And you do have that. You've got the signs in here, and you also have an interesting potential silhouette along the skyline with your trees. I'm almost thinking either get closer to the signs or get a little farther away, or something. I'm not sure. There's not really anything wrong with it. It's just could be more interesting. And I think its strong point is there's just something kind of amusing. I'm not sure why, but there's something kind of amusing about these signs here. Okay, wow, 1 point perspective. Okay, that's almost perfect. Um, much, much, much more interesting than your first one. I'm sure everybody would agree with that. That it's leading our eye into much deeper space. Whenever we have perspective, we have diagonal lines, and diagonal lines are always dynamic. They always indicate movement, and so I imagine you're standing still when you took this. I don't know. Maybe you took it out of the back of your car, but I hope not. But I think it's very dramatic, and I like the light on this one. This was the perfect weather and the perfect time of day. Like when we have those really kind of dark gray skies, and then everything on the ground is kind of lit up. It's it's just perfect. And so really, really nice, color balance on this one, and nice composition. Okay. This one I think is also, it has potential. I think you're doing something similar where you're using a 1 point perspective, to kind of lure the eye into this focal area here. It's a little bit like, oh well, when I get here, there's nothing to look at. Like it seems like this should be framing something, a person. I'm not sure what, but it's a very nice picture. My only other thing that I would criticize on this, and this has pretty much been consistent on everybody's, it's so hard to meter for both the sunny area and the shady area. And whereas this part is perfectly exposed, there's a lot of detail that has gone missing in these areas, and that is a super easy fix because you can, selectively with a mask, mask out the whole top part of it, where we like our contrast, and just play around with our settings in here using some kind of a brush. It's going to be hard to get a good selection on something as delicate as the edges of these leaves, but I think that this is something that some dodge and burn or some masking could make all the difference in the world. So that we feel like that we're a little bit more engaged in the picture. We really feel like that we're standing on this ground here. The ground plane just does not seem as significant on this one. Okay. Yeah, this one, I think you might be onto something with these very simple, um, 1 point perspective things with the roads. A lot of times 1 point perspective um, is very difficult to make it interesting, because they tend to be very symmetrical. And when you've got a very symmetrical balance, and this is almost perfectly symmetrical. In fact, that line just almost goes straight up and down. So you did a great job on like an intentional symmetry. And then there's just a couple of little things in there that throw that symmetry off to give it that variety that makes it not boring. Whoops, you know, the arrow. I mean, it's just I don't know. The road ends, and then you've got this arrow like you're driving, and then all of a sudden you have to turn, make a fast turn right now. You know, I had mentioned this in one of the other critiques that the warm colors tend to push forward, and the cool colors tend to recede. And you know, you can really see that effect working here with the yellow signs. That is why signs are yellow, because not only is it scientifically researched to be the color that's the most annoying or irritating, I should say, to the human eye, well, that means it stands out. And you know, you don't want your road signs to blend in or recede. You want them to get your attention and to really pop forward. And so you can see that the yellows really kind of grab our attention, and then the more subordinated areas are cooler and, you know, tend to kind of recede back. Okay, this is you know, another spin on that 1 point perspective. Um, I don't think it's quite as interesting as the two with the road. I can see where you're going with this one, and I like the narrative that's unfolding. You know, that you've got, you know, here we're standing here on this road, and way down there's this solitary figure, you know, and you've got the road signs even kind of pointing at the figure a little bit. If anything, maybe the figure is a little bit understated. What's happening space-wise is kind of interesting, because it's like you've got a close area here, and then it's like these two bushes here kind of serve almost like as a screen or like a stage screen, and then there's this middle area, and so from here to here you've got the center ground, and then you can almost perceive these trees as being like a curtain, or you know, like a curtain on a stage. Yeah, that's very stage-like, I guess, and that opens up and then reveals an even deeper space, you know, so you really get the sense of walking through an opening and an opening and an opening. So the idea is great. It's a little dull, maybe because there's just not enough contrast happening. Everything kind of starts to blend together right in here. The sky's a little bit blown out. It's a great idea, and I think it's workable. There's not really anything I would say that's wrong with the picture, other than it just, there's something that is making it not as interesting as it could be. A lot of this could probably also be taken care of by getting some more detail. You know, bringing out some of the highlights like I've talked about on so many of these in the shaded areas. But, you know, you got real close to nailing it on that one. Okay, and then the last one, this is probably your strongest one. This is something I don't believe I've talked to you guys about yet, but it's almost guaranteed to get you a good composition every time. It's called an S curve. If you can get a line that draws a letter S or a letter Z across your picture plane, you're almost guaranteed a fabulous composition, because just the way it breaks up the space. So, you know, good use of the rule of thirds here. This line leads our eye in. Yes, I would like to see, you know, some highlights and some detail, you know, brought out in this area down here. Pick up that glow that happens at that time of day. You know, you appropriately, you know, you exposed for the sky, and if anything, you know, you could possibly even enhance the saturation just a little bit. But I think this is the perfect one to conclude with, also because this car looks to be leaving us. You know, like it's the end of the road. You know, it's over. And this one's really really nice. I think that this is probably the best out of all of them. But you've got something, you're hitting on something there that I would like to see you continue to explore. A very very simple idea like this can sometimes turn into something really really interesting if you spend enough time trying to figure out what you need to do to make it interesting. And that is a challenge, that you're taking something that is potentially very boring as a subject matter and you are finding ways to make it interesting. And I would encourage you to keep that approach going, because I don't think you've hit it yet. I like to do series, you guys, because things start to reveal themselves to us in the process of doing a series. And you start out with one intention, and a lot of times by the time you're into it, your direction has completely changed in a way that you weren't even expecting. And so I would encourage you to not just say, okay, landscapes are done, on to the next thing. Keep doing these. I'm hoping that you guys are planning on continuing to take pictures after you get out of this class, I would hope. So, okay, but nice work. And now on to the concluding page.